Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today it's about -3. When I woke up this morning there was a light dusting of snow and everything was frozen. Now it's melted, but there are still patches of snow around the place. Because it's a Saturday afternoon, the village is quite noisy. There are dogs barking, there are kids running around, and occasionally you'll hear cement mixers and circular saws, chainsaws, because this is probably the first weekend it hasn't rained or hasn't been a bank holiday for quite some time. Now, today I would like to talk to you about diet, about food intake. But unfortunately, and I hope you don't mind, I'm going to have to work while I speak. Now, behind me you see a nice little log pile. Last year, my sons and I went to the forest with the village tractor driver twice, and we collected on 2 separate occasions a big trailer full of logs, which we then split and stacked. The one we got in, I think it was April, May, had all summer to dry and season. The second load, I think we got end of October, beginning of November. And normally at this period we have something called babiletto, like Indian summer. Except this year we just had continuous rain. And then every so often we'd have -13 at night. So the wood was wet, 100% humidity, it can't dry. And then with this extreme frost, it seals the water inside. As such, we've basically burned through most of the first lot, about 5 meters of seasoned wood, and we're already into the unseasoned wood. We're mixing, we still do have some seasoned, but the unseasoned wood is too big. The log sizes are too big, so they have virtually no chance of drying. So what I'm going to do today is split them down smaller so they're easier to burn in our various fireplaces. This year we had maybe 9-10 meters altogether of wood, and you get through it really quickly, really quickly. So it's a tedious and unexpected job, but if we're going to survive till after April, when basically winter finishes here, I need to start breaking down the wood into smaller, more burnable pieces. And while I do so, I'm going to talk about diet. Now, excuse me while I put my bandana on. When I chop wood, I normally wear a bandana because it keeps my hair out of my eyes, which is really annoying. Diet. The first thing I'd like to point out is I'm not going to tell you what you should eat. There are too many people in the world who tell you what you should and what you shouldn't eat. I'm also not going to tell you what vitamins you should be taking which may reduce the severity of symptoms of a certain illness that's going around. Now, in the Western media and social media, such conversation is heavily frowned upon. But, luckily for me, the Ministry of Health of the Slovak Republic made a statement 2 or 3 nights ago confirming what many of us already knew. Information which had come from medical professionals concerning vitamin D, vitamin C and zinc. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go take these supplements because there is actually quite a complicated level structure and a percentage and exact amounts of microns of each which you should be taking, and only a medical professional can tell you what your body needs specifically. What I can do is I can suggest certain foodstuffs which contain these vitamins and which perhaps would be good to eat. So, there is also something else you should be taking, but I won't suggest that you take it. And it's not a mineral. It's to do with, or it helps the blood. But I'm not going to tell you what it is, just in case it comes back at me. But I must remember to take some aspirin later. Don't you love splitting axes? If I was doing this with a felling axe, I'd be constantly pulling the blade out of the wood. Right, I'll just do this one and I'll have a look. So, let's have a look. Oh, that's cold on my bum. That is really cold on my bum. Get the old mole skin out. Right. Vitamin D, oily fish, salmon, sardines, herring and mackerel, red meat, liver, egg yolks and some breakfast cereals. So that's vitamin D. I'm not telling you to take vitamin supplements, but that's some foodstuffs which do contain vitamin D. Just in case you fancy to varying your diet somewhat. Vitamin C. Citrus fruits, tomatoes, potatoes, and the best of all, rose hips, although you may find it difficult finding them at the moment. They've probably all been taken by birds. But if you can find them, rose hips, definitely. Just be careful of the inside of a rose hip, because the seeds have hairs with little hooks on. Be very, very careful with rose hips, how you prepare them. Okay. Iron. Red meat, pork, poultry, beans, spinach. Popeye was basically the spinach marketing board, but he did have a point. Dried fruit and peas. That's iron. Ironically, it's actually because this second load of wood we got was so good that it's not drying. This second lot came from 2 trees, big fat logs, big fat logs. They were beautiful, but when you quarter them, the quarters are still so huge they don't dry. It would take probably a year for these to season. Where was I? Sodium. Salted and smoked meat. Sausages, anchovies, hot dogs, salted nuts, spam and egg, spam and bacon, spam, and caviar. So don't feel bad about all this. If you're ultra rich, you can have some caviar and sort your sodium levels out. Personally, I don't like caviar. It's I don't like roe and I don't like caviar. But that's sodium. Potassium. Bananas, oranges, cooked spinach. I'm not a fan of spinach either. Cooked broccoli. Nope, not a fan of broccoli. Potatoes, mushrooms, peas and cucumbers. That's potassium. This one has got a huge knot in it. You can see here, this is a big knot, but they still break. Where were we? Zinc. The number one source for zinc is oysters. So, caviar and oysters, you're sorted. Red meat, poultry, beans, nuts and whole grains. That's zinc. Obviously, you need things like vitamin B, riboflavin. There's a whole lot of things you need. But in these pandemic times, these are what you should be looking for. You should be making sure your daily diet, or at least bi-weekly diet, contains healthy amounts of some of the foods I've just mentioned. But here's where the problem lies. We're living in the soy generation. We're living in a generation of vegetarians and vegans. Now, before I continue, I would like to state something. Philosophically, I would be a vegetarian. Not a vegan, but a vegetarian. I would still eat eggs, milk, butter, dairy products. But philosophically, I would be a vegetarian. Now, I've killed my own food. I've gutted it, I've skinned it, I've cooked it, and I've eaten it. And I've done that many times in my life. And I don't like it. It leaves you with a huge feeling of guilt for taking a life. But I know I can provide food for myself and my family. Many people think this is disgusting, and yet they're happy to buy some bleached, plastic wrapped chicken from a supermarket. Or they're happy to have bacon rashers without actually having seen the pig grow up. But I'm not going to get into a discussion now about the ethics of meat eating. What I am going to say is this obsession with soy is just a marketing campaign, because soy is an industrial product from the agricultural and horticultural sector. It's mostly produced to feed livestock. It feeds the livestock that goes into your burgers that you half eat and throw away. Now, there's two things about soy you should know. Firstly, the Amazon is basically being deforested to produce soybeans. You'll hear PETA and other organisations screaming about the Amazon being cut down for cattle, which is horrific but true. And this is to feed the Brazilian and American gluttony for red meat. Before cattle it was rubber, but now it's soy, mostly for livestock. But the excess soy is also sold your soy milk, your lattes, your tofus, and anyone who thinks they're being environmentally friendly for eating soy, you're not. Look into it. What's happening to the Amazon because of soy? Secondly, Soy is a source of phytoestrogens, which do induce hormonal cancers, for example, breast cancer. But estrogens have a very bad effect, especially on the male body. There is a reason why certain individuals are called soy boys and why they act how they do. Soy is not good stuff. And our future lies in soy, because it's what the industrial complex wants. Plus, if you don't eat red meat, you don't get your testosterone. Your brain capacity doesn't increase. The brain needs meat. The body needs meat. If you want to have children, you don't eat soy. You don't eat diet products and you don't eat soy, you eat meat. Now, I'm not saying it should be how it is in the West, where people expect to eat kilograms of meat per day. I completely disagree with this. Battery farming of any livestock using growth supplements, this leads to very, very bad effects. The Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, for example. We should limit our meat intake, but we should eat meat. The human body is designed to go quite a long period without substantial food. Basically, to pick at things that have been foraged. And then binge on meat and fat and offal. Maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, and stuff yourself on it. I'm a big fan of the paleo diet. And in fact, I've been doing my own version for about 20 years. I eat once a day. Normally. Most people nowadays live a sedentary lifestyle. They work in an office, they drive to the office, they work, sitting in a chair at a desk, come back by car and sit in front of a television. Yet, for some reason, they think they need 3 meals a day. If you don't live an active lifestyle, don't eat as though you do. There is an obesity epidemic in the West. Like Ricky Gervais said once, it's because you consume more calories than you use. If you're consuming calories, which would be more fitting for an Arctic explorer, and you are in fact sitting at a desk or in front of a television most of the time, maybe you can see there's something wrong there. We should reduce our meat intake. We shouldn't battery produce meat, but we should eat meat. We're designed to. Now, there's a lot of things going on at the moment around the world which are going unnoticed in the media. Basically, meat production is being cut and cut and cut for different reasons. There's a YouTuber I would really recommend everyone watch and pay attention to what he says. The Ice Age Farmer. I will leave a link in the description. For several years, he's really gone into depth on what's happening in the food industry and the supply chain. Because this pandemic is only the beginning of big changes. And one of those big changes will be to do with food supply. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as always, be free.